Okay, we're on to the next round here. We've already covered how our paging is wired up in our paging factory, and how we're making the call to get to run the criteria list for Hibernate and run a query that gives us back the records we want based on the entire list or the search list criteria. So I think now what we're going to do is we're actually going to run our application. So let's go ahead. Now I'm using my Eclipse, so it has this cool little deployer. So we'll remove and we'll fire up and redeploy our app fresh. Okay, we're deployed. Now we're going to go over here and fire up Tomcat. Okay, there we go. Now let's go fire up our application. Okay, so like I said, when it comes to security, I've basically disabled the JDBC based auth, and I plugged it in with a hard-coded flavor of it. So this is how our Spring Security is configured to just use these two user IDs we have, and we're going to log in with the app user user ID. Well, it looks like we already were logged in, so we'll just log out. Our session, I have the session in WebXML, I have the session timeout set to 0. Appfuse comes with 10 minutes, which is slightly annoying when you're developing. So we're going to log in with app user, and here's a menu. We also use Struts menus with the Velocity template engine to build these menus. Oh yeah, we won't go into that now. I'll show you that later. So we built the menu, and we're going to get our people list. Okay, so here's the page you're running with JQuery. Okay, so if we go back and look now at our person list, we see we ran the person list. We have log entries from our action class, okay, showing the values that I was just explaining what they are. Okay, and then part of our grid, what the grid's going to do is it knows that the remote URL is JSON. The model is the person's object list that we have in our action class, and that's where it's going to get the data from. If we click the plus sign, or if we actually use the edit in the grid, which we're not in this case, this is the URL that it's going to run when it saves or gets records. Okay, here's our search options for when we want to search records in the grid. It contains, begins with, or equals. We also have some navigator options, which we're telling it if we add a record via the grid editor, what we want to do is before the record is submitted, we want to call this function JavaScript function. After it's submitted, we want to call this JavaScript function, and if this JavaScript function succeeds after submit, we want to call this function, or we want the grid to reload itself, which is kind of handy. So as you edit records, you can just fast edit, insert a bunch of records, and it'll keep refreshing the grid. So that's pretty cool. We also define a row select topic so that when we click a row, it can run a function. Okay, and we're going to subscribe here to that row select, and then we're going to fire up our edit person page, which is going to run the form here, the person form, because we have our Struts2 URL pointing to that, and we're going to pass in the ID of the record that was clicked. Okay, because we're not using the editor. So what I like to do with this is I found that you might, in our person situation, we only have a couple of fields, so the built-in grid editor is fine. But in our App Manager app, when you edit an application, we have 5 or 6 tabs, and trying to do that all from the editor would be a little bit much. So I've broken it up into, when you click the Add button, you can add a couple of fields, get that record in, and then go back and click and edit the record and get the full-blown editor to come up. Okay, so here we define our grid columns. Each column in our model, okay, is going to show up. So the thing about JQuery's grid is it likes the title to be the ID for the actual ID. If you have a different field that's the ID, you still have to use this so it knows which one it is. And we also have it turned off. We don't want to show the user a list of IDs. So if we go back to the page, you see here we only show our fields and the ID is hidden, because if we click the edit button we need to know what that is, but we're not actually displaying it on our grid. Okay, so we're displaying the first name, the last name, and the email, and these two fields here are actually the names in the model. This should reflect your setters and getters, and here is the actual title we're displaying. These are sortable so that when you click something in the grid, they'll sort for you. Okay, so you can sort by all of these, and of course the pager is rerunning these criteria again, setting these sort values up for you. Okay, so the sort's working. Okay, and so that's pretty much how the lister is working. Now when we go to add a record, actually I got to double check this, I'm not sure what it's sorting on here. I'll have to double check, but this is how you would wire it in. I'll fix this in the next video and we'll look at that. So if we go to add a record, we can put in a first name, okay, and we can submit and add the record. Okay, now if we want to find that record, we can click the searcher and we can say the name begins with, and then just put the letter in. Okay, and that shows all the ones including the one we just added. Now if we click the record, we bring up the editor here. See, so here's where you can have the multi-tabs and just show the basic information, the address information, maybe the contact information, cell phone, web address, and all those things. And you can still edit the record here and click save. So you can put in here another name and click save, and the record will be saved here, and then when you're done you can go back to the list. So this is all wired in via the struts actions and the form. So when you click on the edit button, like I said, the edit page will fire up this row select and call edit person, and struts2, when you click edit person, okay, edit person will run the edit in our action class and bring up our person form. So here's our person form, and this is this is pretty much just a struts2 form which is wrapped around a JQuery grid tab panel. So all of this is, if you know struts2, this will be very similar. Okay, and what we did here was we just set up a cancel link, so when you cancel it just runs the person list again. Okay, now if we look at our person action when we edit the record, okay, we're calling the edit method here. So if we go look at our person action, the edit method is basically using one of the built-in methods in our generic DAO, which is going to be to get the person from using the person manager and getting the ID of the record, which we passed in by grabbing it off of the row select function. Okay, so we have a quick demo there of how to use the pager, and so in the next video I'll take a look at that sorting now and make sure that's working, and then we'll get that fixed and we'll discuss that in the next video. See ya.